Hello and welcome back to another Forbes's Gunners show. Here today we're going to be talking about positive things on Arsenal. I've seen enough negative things this week to quite literally take a long walk off a short plank. And the best thing to do in life, I find, is to keep moving forward. That's the best thing we can do. That's what I plan to do today. See how Arsenal can keep moving forward in the right direction. Let's get into it today. Cue the intro. So, starting out today, we're going to get stuck into the latest Arsenal news. Some good and bad news. Partey seems to be recovering from his injury that was supposedly worse than they initially thought. I imagine they'll be resting him for the Rapid Vienna game tomorrow evening, Thursday evening, and hopefully we will have him available for Spurs. All of us will agree that he has all of a sudden become a very, very integral part of the Arsenal setup. And if we don't have him for the Spurs game, it's going to be a very, very interesting game for us. To be honest, I am not overly ecstatic about the Spurs fixture. We're going to need to play really well if we have any hope of winning the fixture. Based on the current form of Tottenham and the current structure that they're using when they're playing, Thomas is going to be a very important part of that fixture. There's been an update as well on Martinelli. Gabriel, it's going to be fantastic to see him playing again in the Arsenal colours. He's scheduled this month to be playing in the under-23 squad and hopefully regaining match fitness to become integrated into the first team again. This is very, very positive news, of course, for Arsenal, but there's been some comments about not being overly excited about him coming back. Of course, it's amazing to have him back, but I personally don't think he's going to be the answer that we need right now. I think he's a very good player, and I really want him to be playing in the team again, but I don't think he's going to change Arsenal's fortunes going into the immediate future at least. We still have some problems with our midfielders that need to be overcome, and all of this talk about creativity. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of Arsenal's creativity problem. Right now, we have, I can see, three potential options and players that could help us with this creativity. One is Saka, the second is Willian, and the third is Luiz. I hesitate to say Ozil as well. We thought he had potentially played his last game for Arsenal. However, considering our need, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a squad member shuffle that incorporated bringing Ozil back in. However, personally, moving forward, I don't like to look back, and I think when Arteta made that decision to exclude Ozil, he probably did it knowing that that would in fact be the last time that Ozil would be playing for us. The even more difficult part is trying to figure out which formation and structure best suits these three players, Luiz, Saka and Willian, in terms of creativity. Of course, we cannot rule out Danny Ceballos either, and I'm hesitant to say as well as Xhaka, although he is not the greatest creative player. He is not that good on defense. So right now, I don't really know where to put Xhaka in this whole mix. However, it's crucial that we figure out who's going to be linking the midfielders with the front three, because this is where we are so weak at the moment. The two formations that we've seen Arteta play would lead us into starting to piece together how we put in these creative players. He started and maintained a fairly solid 3-4-3 formation, which really helped us solidify the defense. But in our recent fixtures, we've seen a more 4-2-3-1 formation, or a 4-5-1, depending on how you look at it, which is a little bit more interesting. Now, let's take David Luiz, for example. In the Manchester United game, he truly opened them up and really allowed for a fantastic flowing game. And with the added influence of Mohamed El-Nani as well as Thomas Partey in the midfield, it really allowed Luiz to move in and out of that back three, I think we're playing at the time, and distribute the ball really, really well. And it was probably the we've seen of David Luiz during this season at least. So my first gut instinct is to use Luiz in a 4-1-2-3 formation. Basically, Luiz sitting ahead of the four at the back, then having Mo as well as Thomas Partey slightly further up, forming almost a 3 and a diamond on attack, and then up front, a 3 up front with Saka on the left, Aubameyang in the middle, and Willian on the right. This is, of course, the team that I would play against Tottenham on the weekend. Granted that I'm not sure if Mohamed El-Nani will be back or Thomas Partey. We all know that the replacements for those two will be Dani Ceballos and Granit Xhaka if Mo and Thomas Partey can't play. So we then fit with 4 at the back, Tierney on the left, Gabriel and Holding in the middle. And I personally think that at the moment we need Maitland-Niles on the right at the back. I think he is a very good player, and I think he warrants a starting position. I think Bellerin is of course also a fantastic player, but just seems to be lacking a bit of that decision making and really has let the team down, particularly against Wolves. Both of their goals were influenced by him being out of position, and really we can't afford that. I think it's time to give Maitland-Niles a chance in that right back position. I think he's well qualified enough for it, and give him a chance there. So then we have Maitland-Niles on the right, forming that back four. Then ahead of them, David Luiz. Then the 2 ahead of David Luiz, of course, Mohamed El-Nani and Thomas Partey. And the 3 ahead of them, Saka on the left, Aubameyang and Willian. Now, that formation allows Luiz to be a more creative player. Very similar role to Kevin Phillips for the Leeds United team and what he does. However, I think that David Luiz's passing skills easily match or even go better than Calvin Phillips. And that's how I would integrate David Luiz into being more a creative player for us. The second positive about this formation with David Luiz there ahead of the front four is that he can easily on defense slot into a back 5 if necessary. It also means that we have a 4-3-3 formation on defense or a 4-5-1 formation on defense, because then David Luiz is in the middle between Thomas Partey and Mohamed El-Nani, and on the left side will be Xhaka, and on the right side will be Willian with Aubameyang up front when on defense. And for me, a 4-5-1 is really, really solid on defense, and I hope that would eliminate the space out wide, which was so well exploited by the Wolves team in our last fixture against them. However, given that David Luiz I don't think is part of the future of Arsenal, I think he is still an massively integral part of our current squad. I think in order to start building towards our future, I have another setup. Again, it starts with 4 at the back, 2-3-1 formation, which I think is really, really suiting our style of play. I think we didn't execute it very well against the Wolves fixture, and that's because it's just Dani Ceballos and Granit Xhaka had an extremely poor game, and those two were really amazing in our FA Cup winning side. So I don't quite know what's happened to the two of them, and whether or not they just tied from international duty, particularly Granit Xhaka. Of course, not Dani Ceballos, but he got into that fight with Eddie Nketiah, and then he was again in a fight with David Luiz. I'm just not sure of his mental space at the moment and how well he's doing off the pitch, which means that he's not playing therefore well on the pitch. So I am concerned that he's perhaps not in the right headspace right now. We of course don't know any personal matters that are going on with him off the field, which makes it quite difficult to predict. But right now I think he's out of form, and I think he's perhaps having a tough time off the pitch. So it's slightly understandable that perhaps he's not finding his top form, and Granit Xhaka is just so tired. Honestly, the worst game I've ever seen him play against Wolves. But what this leads me into is the future play. So now we have the 4-2-3-1, the 3 midfields being Saka on the left, Willock in the middle, and Pepe on the right, and Aubameyang up front as the single striker. So that's a 4-2-3-1 formation, which I really, really think is a positive. And this leads me into my second point now, is that I believe that Arteta is trying to mould Willock into that number 10 role and trying to get him to be the creative influence on the field. And I'm just not sure if that's the best move to be making, trying to mold Willock into that creative number 10 role. I don't want this to be an offense to Willock, but I just don't see him filling that role. I think he's a good 8. I don't think he's a good 10, but we need to find something to help us. And right now, he seems to be the one that's been entrusted by Mikel in order to do that and create. And in order to do that, he's going to have to really pick up his game. I mean, really pick it up. He's been fantastic in the Europa League, but let's be honest, the Europa League fixtures we've had have not really been against particularly tough opposition. And the Premier League is just such a big step up. And right now, we're just relying on, you could see it in the Wolves fixture, we're just relying on, like, everybody's looking to Saka to do something amazing. It's like 18 years old. Kid still. Played a lot of football recently and also looked really tired. Then you look for Willock, and Willock's had some fantastic Europa League fixtures, but now you want him to do the same things he was doing there in the Premier League, and it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to make that step up. I think he needs a bit of time and a bit more experience in that position, in that role, and I think we're going to have to be patient with that, because currently we have no one else that can go into that middle of the pitch and move Arsenal forward. I think Willian can play in that position. Is Willian part of the future? I don't think so. I think our future is going to be, at least under Mikel Arteta, will be a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-5-1 formation. It's got a lot of potential. It makes us robust at the back when Partey and Mohamed Al-Nani are there. And if Willock can be that box-to-box midfielder, which we've been desperate for since Ramsey left. Partey showed a bit of it against Manchester United, and so did Al-Nani, but that shouldn't be their primary role on the field. I think both of them are fantastic defensive central midfielders that can offer some attack when necessary. An attacking central midfielder is going to be incredibly important for us, and perhaps Willock can be that person. And that really, in our youth, I think Arsenal, the mentality recently has been to really get the youth coming through. Let's invest in the players that we have at the club, particularly considering the global pandemic and what's happened this year. So I think it's a really fantastic bit of ingenuity from Arteta's side, but it's from Arteta himself, but it's going to take a bit of time for Willock to settle into that role. It's not going to be easy. He's going to have to really step it up and do it. And I truly believe he can, but he's going to need a few games to get into it and really show that he's able to do it. What do you think about that? Please leave your comments down below if you think Willock's the guy that we need to turn to, if you think we should get Ozil back in, if you think my first option about getting David Luiz to play one ahead of the back four and get him to be a more creative influence. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. Maybe you have completely different ideas, different formations. I'd love to hear them. As always, it's been a pleasure. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.